there's so many young people doing great things, who have great achievements, and there's also so many young people who have no idea where to start.
It would be really good for us to celebrate more and more young people that are doing great stuff.
Shout out to every young person using digital media and digital platforms to either create awareness, run a business, or promote their own business.
Yeah. It would be interesting to hear the government give tangible solutions.
There is a lot to talk about how best to support young people invest in themselves and grow.
Why do young people have to be worried about even seeking internships or placements with government institutions?
There is power in technology.
Why don't you find the opportunities in here first and try and fix that in here first?
The world is a better place because we have young people.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Welcome everyone to yet another episode of the Journey and Fields podcast. My name is Mwende.
And my name is Stella. And on today's episode, we are commemorating International Youth Day. And because we've worked in the youth space for quite some time now, we thought to share our thoughts, our perspectives, some of the ideas that we've had, or even some that we've worked on in the past, and just link these thoughts to the conversations that are going on about International Youth Day. And perhaps just as a good start to discuss why it's important or why the world commemorates International Youth Day. International Youth Day is commemorated to amplify and get the world talking or spark conversations about young people's voices, young people's achievements. That's why we see a lot of young people being celebrated during International Youth Week, but also amplify and give a spotlight to some of the needs, some of the challenges that young people are facing. And so we thought that linking this conversation, this podcast, this space to whatever is going on would also help to share information, create awareness amongst our audience, and just get people thinking about International Youth Day.
Yeah. So first of all, if you're watching this video and you consider yourself youth, or you are somewhere between 18 and 35, actually no, maybe let's say from 15, depending on which version we are using. Happy International Youth Day to you, or Youth Week to you, even the young at heart. It's okay, we'll take you. Lakini saa ya kukula resources, please leave the resources for the youth to the youth. By age, not by heart. Please. Ama you choose to identify as a youth when it works for you, and then when we have to go to the streets to protest, so unasema your knees, your knees are not working well, huwezi kimbia. Anyway, as Stella mentioned, it's quite important to have these discussions because I would say hugely for pretty much most countries around the world, young people are a huge percentage of the population. So rightfully so, it's important to recognize that. It's also important to make sure that their needs are always being discussed, because a country or a nation that has happy youth that are being served in the ways that they need to be served, that is probably going to be a very developed country and a country that will continue to advance.
Yeah, and we recognize that youth is transitional. So like we were counting this morning that we only have very few years. And then we will transition out. And that's why this conversation is not just for young people. We are advocates of young people, and we want young people to develop in the best way they can. And this conversation is for both young people and youth actors. And I think every sector is important to youth development. So the theme for this year, as we commemorate International Youth Day, is Youth Advancing Multilateral Cooperation Through Technology and Partnerships. But before we even delve into this theme, perhaps it would help to just share our general thoughts about young people, the youth demographic. What's the first thing that comes to mind if you were, let me give a scenario. If today you are appointed either at county level or national level in Kenya, let's talk mostly about the Kenyan context, to be in charge of youth affairs in your county, what would you do? Like, what are some of the youth issues that actually occupy your mind once in a while?
I don't even want to call it unemployment. I mean, unemployment is a problem, even just based on the statistics, and the rates of unemployment are actually continuing to increase. But also, young people are also continuing to innovate. So a lot of them are also becoming their own bosses. They're creating employment in some ways. I would say that for me, it's just the reminder that young people are capable. And yet again, I feel like this is, let me say, a societal / cultural / maybe oddly traditional thinking, because sometimes, in the way we say that women and children generally, they're supposed to be seen, not heard. When it comes to now spaces where young people should be presenting their needs, a lot of times the culture has been that they're also supposed to be seen, not heard.
Yeah.
So you find that a lot of things are happening, but no one really asks these young people what they want. And even when they say what they want, you find that by the time the plan is now being released, what they want is like 1% of where the resources are going. And I feel like, just like I said, a happy youth is a happy nation. A developed youth is a developed nation, because all these things that young people will either innovate, or even when we say young people are truly able to experience their rights and enjoy them, then that means chances are other people in community are also able to do that.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about even access to education, if the education system is working for young people, it will work for children, it will work for, it will continue to serve for years on end. So one, for me, the main thing is seeing young people for the capacities that they have, not being tokenistic. So when you bring them to the table where they're addressing their needs, listen first. And I think that's why even when people talk about maandamano, we had this conversation on the side, maybe we can also have it here on camera, when people are talking about how people are saying maandamano is actually, like, is it really bringing that much benefit, or is it just ruining things? And when people say something like that, a lot of the times and reasons as to why young people are on the streets, it's because nobody is listening to them. And now it's gotten to a point where you're killing us, we are saying no, and then you continue to do it. For example, we just go on those streets. Because clearly sometimes action only happens when action happens. So just to answer your question, it still goes back to really trying to listen to their needs, really trying to figure out how to spend resources according to the needs that they bring up. And even if you're not able to address all of them, address two and address them really, really well.
Yeah.
There will be a lot of impact.
Right.
Yeah.
Let me just link that to what I also think, because you said meeting young people where they are and for who they are, and perhaps just using this platform to mention that it's important to factor young people in all their diversities. And we can't even mention all of them in this platform. Yeah, but young people in their diversities, in that we have so many young people who are young women, we have young people with disability, young men, young people in cities, young people in urban areas, young people in rural areas. Which other young people come to mind? Young people in business.
Young people who are experiencing things very differently. So they didn't have the same access to education. They don't have generally the same access to opportunities. We have young people from like the LGBTI community who continue to face very different, like, even when we continue to talk about injustices, there are some injustices that are unique just to them, just because of who they are.
Right.
Yeah.
And we also have young people entering, so we call them, so in our constitution, they are children because they are not yet in the youth bracket. So we have children or young people entering the youth bracket as well.
Yeah.
And then we have young people transitioning out of the youth bracket. And that means that in terms of development processes, then they are not going to mostly be factored into that bracket. And perhaps just to appeal to our community to share, what are some of the youth categories that impact you and that you observe around yourself? Because the more we continue, the more complex information we have. So we just need to keep creating awareness about the different youth demographics that we have. But I think that you cannot address youth issues comprehensively as one actor or as two actors. And that's why we need to have a diverse group of youth actors everywhere that we are.
Yeah.
So this year's theme, Youth Advancing Multilateral Cooperation Through Technology and Partnerships. What are your thoughts around that when you hear this theme? And I can start.
Yeah.
I first of all find International Youth Day themes. Okay, I have an interesting sort of relationship with international conversations. And I know that there is a place for international conversations because when something is too general, it is likely to be missing the point when it comes to contextualizing things, which is why we have local partners. So my first thought about this theme is, I see why it's important to talk about it, but we mostly, and I'm just guessing that a lot of speeches this week will be, this and this is what young people should do, but focus should now be on the how.
Yeah.
How do we make sure that young people are advancing cooperation and all these multilateral conversations in the right way? Like, already we know that young people are not a minority, they're actually minoritized. So they're mostly not in decision-making tables, and that's what actors have been doing. And so how best do we put them, how best do we bring them to the table without always having to tell them that, power is not given.
Yeah, power must be taken. And then when they try to take it, they're overthrowing anyway.
And if they don't invite you to the table, bring your own. Or,
bring your own seats.
Power can actually be given. It's possible to create a platform where young people engage, discover themselves, and have power and the awareness that they need. So I think that the how is very important. What are your thoughts about
their theme? I mean, sometimes I struggle with the same thing that you are saying, feeling like, maybe some of these themes, are they out of touch with like day-to-day reality? But then also I give them grace because I say that, you're trying to find something for all the young people across the world. So we'll take the theme. And in all honesty, young people are actually leading that. It was multilateral change through partnerships and tech. Young people are actually doing it. I want to mention one of them. I mean, I don't know now whether she's still in the youth category, like 35 and below, but it doesn't matter because I'm sure she started this organization when she was a young person. And I saw so many people criticize her for what she has done. But when I look at this theme, I feel like actually what they did is what needs to happen so that then we continue to advance things, because ultimately for some things the government is the duty bearer. It's their job to do such things. So people can only come in as actors to support the government, but ideally the government should be able to own some of these things and implement them. So for example, with Food for Education, Wawera, she's received she's received a lot of criticism because we did see that the county government of Nairobi sort of has been working with Food for Education to make sure that this goes to more and more schools. And I think the criticism, people were like, oh, you're allowing the government to ride on your work. But when you think about it, and especially for me, having worked in the not-for-profit sector, and this year, the way we have seen how there are so many changes that are happening with funding cuts, it's very easy for work not to continue. And truthfully, a lot of work that happens in the not-for-profit sector ideally should be happening so that the government can adopt these different approaches. And one thing with Food for Education is that they make sure that kids at least receive nutritional value. They have good food that is nutritious, that is, so that they're able to grow, they're able to concentrate in school. And that has been able to get to them in the most affordable way. And when I talk about this team, she's doing both because she brought in tech with the TAP technology so that kids don't have to lose their 5 bob, 10 bob to pay for that food. And then also she's doing partnerships. By working with the government, more kids in Nairobi are able to go to school and not worry about a meal. More parents don't have to worry about, maybe we don't have food at home, but maybe I can have, or I need to start thinking about this, or what will my child eat? But at least she's making sure that they're getting to eat and it's nutritious meals. So when I think of someone like her, I appreciate such themes because one, the work of people like her will be amplified and will be celebrated across the world as it should rightfully be. And also it's a reminder that people are doing this and people are leading change. And you know what? It's good to celebrate because sometimes, so I take stride in acknowledging that sometimes these themes are a bit off, but actually maybe they're good reminders of the things that we should continue to celebrate and the things that should be placed at the front or at the core. Even as we talk about this theme, one of the things that I was thinking about and another entrepreneur I definitely want to highlight is Joanna Kay, who I am wearing one of your products. I'm wearing Coco Crush. I really love Joanna Kay. I love the business. I love the essence of it. I love I love everything.
My favorite is the Boss lipstick.
So awesome. Joanna, please, we are your people. But anyway, when you were talking about the how, that these themes are good, but we need to talk about the how. I've remembered how when she was launching her business, I even remember the date. It was 1st December 2018. She did a video and she was talking about how it was so difficult for her to get credit. So that she can be able to really grow her business and start her business anyway, because at that time she was starting. And I remember listening to that and hearing more and more experiences of people who say, you know, when you go to a bank and you want to get a loan, there's so many restrictions. You have to show you are employed, you have to show you have stable income, you have to show XYZ. I know that things are slowly changing, but some of the people that I've recently had conversations with, they were saying, even as they continue to try and access credit, and they are not salaried, for lack of a better word, like they're either business people or working as consultants. They talk about how it's so difficult to convince, let's say, that bank or that lending institution that you will pay back, that you're doing something that will earn you money. You know, it's just so difficult because there's no control of there's an employer that they can run to and be like, this person is not paying us. So that's why I've remembered when you mentioned about the how, for me, that's one of the things that I would appreciate. I would appreciate if the government listens and says, maybe we need to push banks to make sure that there's some flexibility with some things. And of course, we are not saying be lenient just so that people can steal and not pay back with these loans. But however, meet people, because that's what is called responsive programming, that you really understand the needs of people and respond to that. A lot of creatives also talk about the same thing, to be able to show steady income so that someone is able to lend you money so that you can grow your business or do whatever. It's not as easy. And I think those are some of the things that young people are facing day to day. So even when we generally look at these themes, as I mentioned, they are good to celebrate things, they are good to bring issues to light. But honestly, it would be interesting to hear the government give tangible solutions. Not, for example, I think last year, where they were saying one of the solutions to unemployment is that they're trying to make deals with Canada and Germany so that a lot more young people can be able to move. But like, why must that be the solution? Why can't we fix things here? Why do young people have to be worried about even seeking internships or placements with government institutions? No, wait, with government institutions here locally, while the government itself can have favorable policies about how they employ, because they also have to lead by example. They can have policies that corporates have to comply with. They have, you know, like really the government can do a lot more to solve generally this unemployability, or rather this high unemployment rate that is there. And to me, well, I look at it as one of the solutions. I really don't understand why that can be said as one of the major solutions, or that the government is announcing that, why don't you find the opportunities in here first and try and fix that in here first.
I think it's important to talk about benefits or things that government is doing to encourage young people owning businesses and running businesses. And now that you spoke about creatives, I also want to shout out a young woman, Tatiana Gishero.
A
young creative who is using digital media to galvanize young people and even help them understand how they can educate themselves. And because she's a young woman, which is one of the things that I would like to highlight and say that part of my thoughts about young people or the youth demographic is that young women are also young people. Because most of the times, teen mothers, after having their babies, then do not consider themselves or are not considered young people. Exactly. And so that leaves them out when we have youth platforms where they can get to engage and even access resources, because they think that just because I am a teen mother, just because I am a mother, they don't even know that they're a teen mom, then I'm not part of those conversations. But shout out to every young person using digital media and digital platforms to either create awareness, run a business or promote their own business, or also create a digital footprint, which is so important for everybody, every young person. And something else in line with digital awareness and visibility is the older generation not fully embracing technology, because I think it's quite hard for them, but giving grace to the fact that there is power in technology. And that looks like extending more opportunities to young people who can then bridge the gap between their level of knowledge and what is existing. I find that to be such a good job opportunity for young people, that they can even translate the history that is in old books, which is good, and I love old books and physical books. But young people can then help in making sure that what we have in the physical books is transferred into digital material. And that's how we spread our histories. That's how we tell our stories, and tell it so powerfully, because young people can do that. And when you spoke about Wawira and food for education, one important thing is the link between children and young people, because children then eventually join the youth bracket, because then we are transitioning. And it's said, research shows that the first 5 years of a child are the most important formative years. And so malnutrition or nutrition then becomes very important. So what is fed to young people, and why I am also a big fan of what Food for Education is doing, is Wawira is not just feeding children. She is actually contributing to the
future
demographic of this country. And so I really like it when I see a lot of organizations recognizing her and supporting the work that she does. And we also know that there are so many young people doing great work, and we might not be able to recognize them here. But just to say that everywhere we go, there are so many young people doing great things, who have great achievements. And there's also so many young people who have no idea where to start, struggling with capital, like you said, struggling with school fees, and even those who don't have access to digital spaces, access to internet costs, for instance, bundles becoming so expensive, or not being able to afford internet costs. So there is a lot to talk about how best to support young people, invest in themselves, and grow.
And I just feel like it would be really good for us to celebrate more and more young people that are doing great stuff, even if it's yourself. So if you're watching this or listening to us via Spotify or another platform, please leave a comment and celebrate someone in there. Wacha tukue watu wa kusema na kutenda. Leave a comment and recognize something that one young person is doing, because we really also want to be able to amplify, celebrate, and bring to light what different young people are doing.
So we celebrate you. Happy International Youth Day.
Woo!
And
while it lasts.
Just to say that it's everybody's responsibility to know that we all have a role to play in creating a generation of young people who really believe in themselves in all their generations. And there's so many Gen Z now. Then we have Gen Alpha.
And those ones,
so
they think Gen Z ni wakali.
Now that we actually they're so challenged by Gen Z. Are we ready? And
I'm ready. Let them come.
And
tell them to come.
We don't have to always agree with what they say. We just need to ask ourselves, are we ready for this generation? And how are we setting them up for success to live out the best versions of themselves? So thank you, everyone. Happy International Youth Day to every young person. And shout out to all actors who are doing their best to serve the youth of Kenya, the youth of the world. And the world is a better place because we have young people.
That's true. Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.